they're so pivotal to the story, such an important role. You wouldn't have the story without them, and yet they're not necessarily the one that the story's about. Hi, welcome back to Weatherford Daze. We're Jason and Rachel Weatherford, and on this channel we discuss books, movies, faith, and family.
Oh, we got it.
Yay!
Yay.
I have a feeling we're going to end up just throwing that out eventually, but we'll see.
I don't know. It sometimes it can get, it's like your tagline. It's your thing. I don't know. We know some YouTubers who have their little bit that they say at the beginning of every episode. You're almost like,
welcome back, Weatherford Daze. Yeah.
Okay.
You're going to be cutting
well, let's workshop that. Let's keep on workshopping it and just throw it against the wall and see what sticks. Hi, everybody. How many everybody's there are out there? How you doing? We're having a good night. We're just talking about books, movies, and stuff and nerding out. And we're glad you're here with us.
We're a little bit earlier today than we normally are. Our son went to bed early, so we're sneaking out here to get a little recording in.
Take advantage.
Yeah. Last week, we talked about heroes. We really kind of zeroed in on what everybody would say, the main heroes, the ones who have some power or special ability or some crazy circumstance that makes them be the one that ends up having to sacrifice, to step up, to be brave, to really go that extra mile.
Sacrifice. Self.
Yeah,
you already said that? Okay. Chosen ones and choice,
where it's the choice that actually propels them into being the main character, right?
Yes.
So this week we wanted to talk a little bit more about the unsung heroes, the unlikely heroes, the side character energy that sometimes don't get acknowledged as heroes, and yet are a lot of times the most important ones. They're the ones that are the behind the scenes. They're the wind beneath my wings, right?
Yes. Don't call these characters sidekicks. I am not a big fan of that word with regard to these characters. I think it trivializes. Hey, there's nothing wrong with sidekicks.
Trivializes the role.
We all love Robin to Batman, but what we're talking about here is something a little bit more thematic that can go across all genres, all media, all different kinds of media.
The way that we described it when I was pitching the idea to you was who the hero would call their hero.
Mm.
Who is the one that Batman would say is his hero? Alfred, right?
Oh, we can talk about that.
Who's the one that Harry would say was his hero? I mean, would he name, in his case, would he name Dumbledore? Would he name Sirius? Would he name, Professor Lupin? Who was the one, that really, or would he name Molly Weasley?
And I mean, what about Hermione Granger? I mean, she's a main character, though.
Yeah, she's a main character.
But she's always coming in. The phrase I thought of with these characters is coming in the clutch, is how I would word that. Is when they're most needed, they provide that special something just by virtue of being themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's needed by the hero to spur them on, to encourage them, to ground them a little bit in. I always think of the part where Harry says, "But I am the chosen one." Smack. Sometimes those I don't want to say side character, but sometimes those unlikely heroes, like you're talking about, they kind of have to bring you back down to reality, but also go, you can do this. Okay.
To borrow a phrase from Jamie French,
okay,
one of the greatest YouTubers, right?
Maybe not. I'm familiar with her work. Yes.
Yeah, Jamie French, she's great, but she has shirts and merch that say side character energy, and I love that because that's really one of my favorites, is, and this to me personifies the type of energy that we have here. They're not ever wanting to be the main character, but they're the one that the main character relies on. And they have just something special in their own right.
Well, a lot of you said side character energy. I hear that phrase main character energy a lot, and I think that I have a love-hate relationship with that, because I know that we all think that we're the hero of our own tale. Even some people that have done some despicable things probably think they're the hero of their own tale. We can talk about villains later, but we've got the main character energy, to me it seems like somebody thinks a camera like this invisible camera follows them around wherever they go,
Mm-hmm.
and they just walk around like, hey everybody, and you're like, you're not on camera, and there's an egotism to that, but
There is.
but we're talking about in the world of
There's a
fiction.
humility.
Yeah.
There's a humility. There's not a need or desire to be the one to save the world, but they're going to be beside the one that's saving the world.
And in comedies and rom-coms are usually like the funny side character, and they're honestly sometimes the more memorable of the characters, because
And a lot of times they have their own story, and if you knew what they had already been through, you would understand their role in this story. But this is not their story, right?
but they have their own life and things like that. I will tell you, I don't know the title of it. I'll probably put it up on screen if I can remember. But I remember hearing that there is this. It's not a parody of rom coms, but there's a rom com related movie or short where basically it shows what happens to the side character when the main character is not in the scene, and they're just almost like sitting there. They don't know what to do, and the main character comes in. And they go, "Hey!" and they come to life, and you're like, "That's the part you see
Oh
on screen."
no.
So it's almost like they're just like, they power down whenever the main character's out of the scene. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking
No.
about characters that have their own. I think sometimes writers will come up with fan fiction about what those characters do, but again, we're getting excited about what we're talking about. What would you want to go over?
The unknown book of the day, the one that inspired me with this,
Yeah, here you go.
is, and I love doing this because I like taking obscure books that nobody's probably ever known and just throwing out their little storyline. Maybe you'll want to read it, maybe you won't. But
I've heard of the character
before we talk about all of
that's
the
in this
big
book.
ones that
Yeah,
everybody's going to know,
yeah.
we're gonna throw out one that nobody knows. So this book that is called Mail Order Bride Inc. Dear Mr. Weaver. There's a whole series. The author is Kit Morgan. She has so many books. If you look her up, you will just scroll and scroll and scroll. She is a
Prolific.
very prolific writer.
Yeah.
So this one, though, in particular, says, let's see, mischief, marriage, and mayhem. These mail order brides have something to write about. Mrs. Pettigrew of the Pettigrew Mail Order Bride Agency sees to that. She likes to hear from all her brides and loves a happy ending. But to ensure her brides get one, she does things to help love along. Sometimes, however, those things don't always go as planned. Dear Mrs. Pettigrew, I've reached my destination, and I must say that the Washington Territory is not what I expected. Neither is my new husband, for that matter. His family is huge, loud, and boisterous. We haven't had a moment's peace since our wedding. I don't mean to complain, but I wasn't prepared to become a schoolteacher for 7 children. 7 mischievous, prank-pulling children, no less.
Right.
No, they are not my husband's, thank heaven. They belong to his older brother and his wife. In short, I should have been warned. He said nothing in his letters about any of this. I don't know how much longer I can endure it. Please write back to me as soon as you can, before I go mad. Sincerely, Ebba Weaver. Daniel Weaver was ready for a wife. His 3 older brothers had been married for several years, and now it was his turn. So, like his brothers Arlen, Benjamin, and Calvin, he sends for a mail order bride, with a little help from their cousin Matthew, of course. After all, he helped his brothers write their letters to their prospective brides, so why not him? But when the letter from his bride comes, it's got more than her acceptance of his proposal written in it. Worse, it gets picked up and read by the town's worst gossip, Nellie Davis. Ebenezer can't figure out why folks in her intended town of nowhere would be giving her such odd looks. It was bad enough she had other things to deal with by coming to the Washington Territory to marry a farmer. But now this? Was there something wrong with her future husband? Or just with her? Of which she knew there was plenty. Enough to make her think she might not get married at all. Enjoy this sweet historical Western romance and the first book in this Laugh Out Loud new series. So, yeah, the book centers around the story of a mail order bride. There are other series by Kit Morgan that feature the Weavers and the brothers, the first three brothers, and their mail order brides. This one starts a new one and kind of has a different way of starting. And Mrs. Pettigrew is she's an interesting character because the story is about her and yet not about her. She's the one that just somehow she's a matchmaker that has a knack for finding and matching brides to the right ones. She just has a nose for love. It's so just fun, lighthearted, not meant to be taken seriously, and one of those that, yeah, I like writing or reading this type of genre when I just, again, need a break from the world, need a break from the serious, and this is a fun.
It's an older, not old, it's a less modern style of writing, would you say? More like, like they would, like different style of speaking than you would speak now. And so it takes you back.
Somewhat.
Some things that
The
are set
thing
at a
is,
particular
though,
time.
is Kit Morgan does do, she does series that are modern and that are set more in the Western type Wild West. So I wouldn't say that the way that she writes is necessarily old fashioned,
Right.
because she has more of a young approach to it, but she puts these brides in that situation, in that genre. So it does make for an interesting, because I've read older books that were more, seemed to have, to embody or to typify the way that those brides would have actually thought versus the more modern day mentality that these brides, and that's the thing, you've got a lot of younger authors now that haven't necessarily enmeshed themselves into the way that they would have been thinking in that time. It's much more of a new way of looking at romance and at the way that they would have gotten
because
along.
that's what they understand.
Yeah.
And you have
it's
to,
hard to write for a time period that's not your own.
if I was writing in the style of something in the 1930s, just I would find something from that genre by a particular author that maybe kind of fit some, at least and just immerse myself in that. I'd watch old movies, but also understanding that that in those old movies it is kind of a heightened reality, and so that doesn't necessarily mean people talk like that, but at least gets you in that mindset. At least your loads ahead than if somebody's just writing. When you were saying that, I was thinking about, oh, so it's someone from the now just wearing a costume, like cosplaying as somebody probably from the 20s or something. And they're basically going like, yo, what up?
It's more the difference between a historical romance and a modern day romance written in a historical setting.
You bring a lot of things have changed since the 20s. I mean, there's a lot more. There's a lot more, especially how women are treated. It's different now.
Well,
I know we don't think so, but they are.
Grace Livingston Hill.
Okay.
Who actually she was a pastor's wife that lived in, I'm going to get this wrong. I think she was in the 1940s, 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little bit earlier. I think that was when she was writing, and a lot of her books were set anywhere from the 1920s to the 1950s was when her books. So, the way that she wrote, she knew the contemporary mindset around that time. And when you read those books, it's like traveling back in the past,
Mm-hmm.
where you're going, the way that they looked on makeup and short haircuts and the modern attitude of these girls. She had very much her characters were all very old fashioned. They were fresh faced. The way that she presented, this is the way that a woman should look and should act. And then if these other girls, that she pitted them against, that were willing to paint their lips and to wear shorter dresses, and it was a very scandalous way of contrasting her heroines with the temptation to become more modern,
Wow.
and it's just, you really do see and understand because you're looking through the lens of someone from that time period and the way that they looked at and what Make America Great Again would have been like back then to her.
It's a little bit dead. Yeah.
It would have been a completely different thing than what we
So
think of.
speaking of time or time period, let's see, you were kind of right when you talked about the 40s, because it was like maybe a small handful of her books were set from 40 to 46. A vast majority of her stuff is from early 1900s all the way to the 40s. So she's got 30s, 20s. Ooh, lots.
But
She wrote a lot.
when was she writing? Yeah,
That's when the publishing dates.
Which
Those
is actually really fun because Grace Livingston Hill was one of those that wrote hundreds of books. And then we're talking about Kit Morgan, who has also written lots of books, but she's a contemporary writer. So,
right.
Two really very, very different types of women and writers, and yet they both wrote and loved romance and
A little bit of that old fashioned too. A little bit of old fashioned in some ways.
I wouldn't say that Kit Morgan is necessarily old fashioned. And see, that's the thing too, is Grace
That's
Livingston
not a
Hill
knock on that at
was
all.
very, very Christian. Like I said, she was a pastor's wife. Every single book, I believe, that I have read by her anyway, she included the gospel message in there. And it was, her books were a tool for evangelism. Kit Morgan, I don't know if she's necessarily Christian. She writes clean, and a lot of there's church settings, there's pastors, it's set in a religious setting, but it's not blatantly Christian by any
It doesn't
means.
denigrate or point out just the bad parts of religion, right? It shows it's positive. So it's amenable to.
And it's, they may talk about God or prayer in her books, but it's more
It's
of
just
like a side
set dressing.
thing. Yeah, it's not
It's
necessarily
it's part of the world. It's not like I'm trying to make a point about
right. I wouldn't say that these are Christian books,
but
they're not something that a Christian would be afraid to read.
You said something that this is an obscure, but when you mentioned it, I was like, I've heard of Mrs. Pettigrew because there's a movie I think based on with that character. I think. Am I wrong?
I don't know if it's the same. I don't know.
I'm curious, but we'll look at that.
Yeah, she is one of those that, and why I call her. I'll kind of get back on track here a little bit.
No, it's fine
because I've wandered all over the place.
No, it's okay. It's kind of like our little segment where we like go, oh, we have something we suggest, our suggested little morsel for you to eat. That's kind of like a review.
Mrs. Pettigrew features in several different of Kit Morgan's series, and she has this series. She's multiple others, but she's always one of those. She's quirky. She is a wealthy widow. She absolutely loves it. She's a little mysterious. You don't really know how she knows who's going to fit together, who's going to go right. She just knows. And she always seems to know when to just encourage her brides to just have faith, just have some patience, just keep going. She's kind of always has the right thing to say, though never ever and as much as the bride wants her to say. They go to her for answers and she has them. It always ends out working, but it's never quite the way that they want it to
So
be.
so so she doesn't tell them exactly what to do at exactly the right time. It's kind of like the nudge,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like, when a teacher is teaching somebody, they don't want to give them the entire answer, but they want to help them. Here's how you get to the answer, and I'm going to put a little hint out here, and just step back and watch you kind of figure it out on your own, because it's
And
so
she
much
has
more.
a heart for people in all different levels of society. She doesn't care whether these brides are coming from, whether they're heiresses or whether they're completely destitute on the streets. She is going to help anyone. She's going to see the heart and the character of who they are and find somebody who will value them for who they are, not from the situations that they come from or whatever they're running from. Because I mean, the reality of the situation is you have a mail order bride. There's obviously something that drove that young lady to need to seek that route. It's not something that most people would choose unless they had no other options.
Would you say she's kind of an example of that unlikely or unsung hero?
Hmm.
Everybody likes to say, "Oh, this couple," but she's the one that got them together, and that's kind of like, when they look back at it, they would go, "Yes, it's great that we got together, but Mrs. Pettigrew, we give, and they recognize
Hmm.
when they would not, quote, toot their own horn, or wouldn't, really make it about them. Hero to the main characters. They are a supporting character. They're not a sidekick. Let's not say they are. They're an unsung or unlikely hero to the heroes. Do you want to talk about? Do you have a favorite in all the media or fiction or whatever? Not real life people. We can talk about that. I can talk about my real life heroes, but
I do want to get to that.
maybe so. Well, okay. What's one of your favorite characters with that side character energy that fits that unsung or unlikely? And it can be one that we all know. It could be one that I've never heard of. It doesn't matter to me.
I didn't know you were going to ask that question.
Well, whenever you came up with the idea for this episode, did you have a particular, like an archetypal character in your mind, that fits that?
See, I think that's the thing. It's that there's not any one. It's that there are so many because these characters are these heroes are the ones that are the most prolific. They're in everybody's story. There is one. Everybody's lives. There are. We all have heroes. And that's why I said, I do want to get to that because that's
Yeah.
part of why I feel like this type of hero is so important. We can all go, oh, why am I not the hero of my story? We can all have those moments when we go, I feel like I haven't accomplished anything big. I haven't, saved the world. I haven't, I don't have any special ability. I don't have anything that I feel like I've accomplished. And yet all of us have been the unsung hero in somebody's story. We've all been the heroes. Whether in my case, I feel like by being the mother, by being the teacher to my children, by being sometimes just the friend that was there to listen to somebody in at a moment when they needed a listening ear or a bit of guidance or somebody to pray with, someone to just hurt with them when they were hurting, whatever the case may be. I had that moment where I was the hero to someone. And I can look and I can say there are moments when my parents, my mom, my dad, my siblings have all been that person to me. When I have those special friends, we all have those people that we can look to and say, at that moment in my life, they were the hero. That person who, oh goodness, for us, we had our pastor at a time when we had been unemployed for several years and we were struggling. And
Yeah.
he said, "You know what? I heard you had car trouble. My wife isn't using her car. Here you go." What what a moment, to go, this was somebody that was truly there. We didn't have to go into massive amounts of debt with no job to pay it off. There was no way on our own that we could do this. And he gave us the ability to continue on, to keep on going without digging ourselves into a further hole than we were already in. Yeah, you've got those real life heroes, and in every single book, if you look for them, they're there. In every single movie, they are there.
And we can talk about some of the features of this unsung heroes, and it not only relates to fictional characters, but very characters, people, they're real people, the real unsung heroes in our lives. They fit the. I'm sure they can fit these criteria. These criteria, and these are just suggested criteria. These are some things that people see themes that. So we might even go through these and go, yeah, the real life unsung heroes fit this too, fit these elements. Before we go into that, one thing that you were talking, what I heard in my head was, I didn't plan on saying this. I heard where the disciples, I believe, of Jesus are arguing who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom. And I was like, when I thought of that, I was like, so which one of us has main character energy? They were all saying. And it said the greatest of these is the servant of all. And if you think about it, Jesus' ultimate life was to serve. I mean, even when he is washing the disciples' feet, no, but you're the big guest. You're the centerpiece. You're the main character energy of this whole room. You shouldn't stoop to doing the unsung hero thing. And he said, unless you do this, you're not going to have, unless you let me serve you, you're not going to have any part of this. Because I think that it was a lesson to Peter to allow someone to serve, and then he would go, I can serve too. And of course we see later in Peter's life he absolutely does that. So for me, the greatest is the servant of all, is that one that doesn't blow their own trumpet. Would say don't something the Bible says, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. So like if you're in my mind, it's thinking about don't put too much emphasis on what you're doing, the little things for other people. Sometimes angels unaware. You have somebody who just comes in and takes care of something and then fades in the background, and you're like, who was it was somebody at church did something for you and didn't want their name to be known, didn't want to shout from the rooftops about how great they are. They didn't. They do. When we get talking about real people, I will mention somebody. I won't mention her name, but because I don't, I didn't ask for permission, but I'll put a name in there, but you'll know who I'm talking about when I get there. We can talk about that after we talk about the fictionals. What do you think?
Okay.
I guess so. Now these are some research we did. Okay, loyalty stands by the protagonist no matter what, even when the chips are down.
So these are ones that you pulled up. I'm not sure I agree with all of them, but yeah.
Okay.
So
Well,
I'm just scanning through.
yeah.
Jumping ahead.
Go ahead.
I would say loyalty, definitely. But I don't know that it's always loyalty to the protagonist.
Right. Okay.
Because one of the one of the things about an unsung hero to me is that they are loyal to what's right, that they have a wisdom that knows that even if they need to reprimand, even if they need to redirect, that that they're willing to do that. They do what's right. And that's similar to, the heroes we talked about last week with the your main hero, right? What One of the aspects of them is that they do what's right, that they have a strong moral compass. And I think that goes for this as well. There's a loyalty, but it's a loyalty that's tempered by that wisdom.
They hold them to a candle, remind them of the reality of the situation. I don't know that I would say like a Doctor Who companion. Many times will hold the doctor to a candle and go, you just can't do that.
Maybe that's really just thinking about what actual loyalty is, because loyalty is based off of love. And when you love someone, you think about what they need, not necessarily about what they want. You're willing to push someone to go beyond what they were thinking to what they need the most. And there's a wisdom to be able to see that. I think I'm just repeating myself now. So, your second?
I was saying selflessness acts for the greater good, not personal glory. So they're doing this for good reasons, not to puff themselves up or something like that. They would probably some of them would be like, oh, that's yeah, no, they would look down on that, and sometimes they can kind of keep the main character from getting kind of a big head. I was thinking of the Harry Potter scene where he said, I am the chosen one, smack. Sometimes, what is it? The wounds of a friend are
Mm-hmm.
sweet, but the kisses of the enemy is worse. So if somebody is going to say something, you got to kind of go, yeah, you're right, and not think that they're against you, but they're for you. And it
Mm-hmm.
may look like they're not encouraging you, but they are. They're pointing out to you where you could do that better. They're always lifting you higher, but they never want to be at the forefront. They always want, no, you do that.
Funny, because I really feel like all of these things are things that all heroes do share. It really is just kind of what role are you playing at the moment.
Hmm.
And I think that that's when you have those characteristics, when you are a person that is a person that walks in humility and selflessness, that's loves other people, that's willing to put others above yourself, then you can be the supporting role. You can be the main hero. Just whose time is it? Is it your time to step into that big role, or is it your time to support the person who's stepping into the big role? And I think that those character traits, you have to have those character traits or be willing to learn them. And I feel like, another word that we were throwing around was mentor. I feel like this hero is one that has been there, that has experienced some things. And because of their experience, they're able now to support. They're able to lift someone else. They're able to give someone what they need to be able to fulfill their destiny because they've already been through some fire.
I don't know whether I should say this or not. Okay, I kept thinking of a phrase. It's called locker room leader.
Oh no.
There's a semi fictional performance entertainment show that I watch sometimes a lot, and then that has a behind this. There's a behind when you learn some of these actors' roles that they portray outside of the acting. They're in behind the scenes, and they're saying, "Hey, let me show you the ropes." Sometimes literally, show you the ropes. Let me encourage you. You're going to do all right, kid. Guidance, and sometimes they are there to make that new guy look really good because it's his time, it's his year, it's his season, it's his time to shine, to build them up. In fact, in the biz, they call it carpentry because he's a carpenter. It means you're building them up.
Inside Out 2?
Huh?
Inside Out 2.
As what?
Isn't that the main character Riley? Right?
Yeah, Riley. Yeah,
she is good. The girl who's like the kind of takes her under her wing, and Riley changes her whole personality to
she wants to
her.
be like her. Yeah,
Yeah,
kind of.
and
Except
the girl is like, "Nah, you're doing it all wrong." In the end.
Except instead of hockey, it's another. That's hockey's an. See, the thing is, Rachel, hockey is an actual sport. It has some.
So I'm taking it too literal.
Are you?
With the locker room
It's
mentality?
wrestling.
That just
It's professional wrestling. I'm sorry. But
Boo.
yeah. Well, I was thinking about a
Boo.
veteran. She hates it. A veteran behind the scenes that goes, hey, I've been doing this for a long time. Here, let me, whenever we do this, this is what you need to do. They protect them a little bit from some of the politics that's going on. If they really kind of, when guys are messing with each other, they go, look, hey, so it's kind of like, it's almost like an older brother. I've been there before. I've done this for a while. I got some wisdom as to what not to do in this business. So I would say a lot of times those are those unsung heroes in that. But I was thinking about building. I was really thinking about building up. Is they're here to build them up, and it's not ego. They're like, hey, it's his time to get over, basically to get pushed up, to be, because he's getting really, people really responding and clapping for him. Let's make him look really good. And that's the thing is who are you making awesome? A lot of times in role playing game books that I've read, they say make each other awesome, share the spotlight. And that describes, well, to me, that describes that unsung hero kind of mentality. Is they know when the spotlight is not really supposed to be on them, it's supposed to be on them. And they, they give them advice and push them into that and build them up, edify them. That's that selflessness that I was talking about. You have to kind of have and this only comes sometimes with age, is you have to die to your ego a little bit to kind of go, I could go, hey, I'm the veteran. I've been doing this for a long time. I still got some life left in me. And when you see some of those guys that act that way, you're like, it comes off a little bit like, okay. But when that they're selfless and they're pushing somebody else to succeed and making them look awesome. It's there's a Yiddish word is mensch. I think they're a real mensch, like somebody of upstanding moral value that, that I would say. That's just what I was thinking about when you said selfless, because that's the way my brain goes.
So I feel like we have pretty much described heroes. I feel like we've described the unsung heroes, the supporting character heroes, the ones who are not sidekicks. There's more to them than that.
Right.
But it really is kind of hard to define their role. And yet they're some of my favorite characters always, because they're so important and they're so real. And they make me happy.
Yeah.
They make me happy in real life. They make me happy in books. When you have someone that is just, they're so pivotal to the story. They're such an important role. You wouldn't have the story without them, and yet they're not necessarily the one that the story's about.
all of you out there watching now, if you feel led to, go to the comments and maybe give us some examples of your favorite unsung heroes, unlike heroes in fiction. And if you want to, if you feel like you can, some real life heroes to you who has edified you and been selfless in your life, built you up.
Or you can tell us that we're inventing a new category that completely doesn't work. And
I think it works. I think we have data to support it.
Okay, all right. Well, hopefully.
It's fine. Hey, yeah, I hope you've enjoyed tonight. I know I did. I almost don't want it to stop, but I know that sometimes we need to.
We're going to go be the heroes of our children's lives and
Yes.
make them go to bed on time.
We are going to exude that mom and dad side energy, side character energy to our kids who are now the main characters. They're the legacy heroes of the Weatherford clan. So
I feel like that's the way it should be, shouldn't it?
yes.
Like, I've had my time. Now it's your time. But you know what? I feel like grandparents have that energy even more so than parents do. Because a lot of times
100%.
parents still feel like we're the main characters. But
we're the mentors. We're the main mentor kind of characters, protectors. But
they're the ones that you go on a vacation and they watch the kids so mom and dad can go out and have a date night. The grandparents don't go on the vacation and necessarily say, oh, your grandfather and I want to go out for a date night while we're here. No, they're like, no, we're going to take the kids.
You've had your time. Now it's time for us to shine.
I can't wait to get to that stage.
Sorry.
When
for us, we get to be that. Oh, okay,
right.
Cool. I think slowly but surely, I'm gonna graduate from main character, to supporting character, and eventually I'm just gonna be like the guy in the crowd. It's like
silver-haired. Hey, you're gonna be.
I'm still Alfred. Here now. Yeah, I'd love to be that. That kind of Alfred character to my kids and the grandkids and everything. On that note, on that lovely note, we're glad you joined us tonight at Weatherford Daze and. Okay, may your days be Weatherford days. No.
May we bring clarity to your days?
Clarity, fun, frivolity, a little bit of joy to your days. And we're workshopping this, so yeah.
Yeah, we'll get it eventually.
Yeah, I'm sure.
All right, well, thank you. Good night.
Bye, good night.